Hello again, everyone. This is Adam Pohl, and it's time for another Donny Lind Show presented by Educational Systems Federal Credit Union. We take a look back last week, the Mount with a narrow defeat on the road at St. Peter's, and then coming home in front of a packed house on Dottie Phelan Day for a huge win against Manhattan. The Mount will now play at home. It's a big week ahead. We'll look forward as well to a home game Thursday night against MAAC. They are in first place currently in the MAAC. And then the Mount quickly on the road Saturday night, taking on Iona in another rematch of last year's title game. We break it down with Coach Lind right after this as the Donny Lind Show starts now. Great to have you with us here today for the Donny Lind Show presented by Educational Systems Federal Credit Union. My name is Adam Pohl, joined now by the Mount coach, Coach Lind. 2 games last week, Coach, at St. Peter's and then Manhattan at home. First, looking at that St. Peter's game, it was an unusual game. A lot of times in college basketball, when you're dealing with foul trouble, it's usually for a big man. But in that game, Arlandis Keys was only able to play 22 minutes. And when he fouled out of the game, you had a lead in the game with 7 or 8 minutes remaining. And St. Peter's went on a run right after that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't able to close that game out the way we wanted to. Got a little stagnant offensively and weren't able to get enough stops to offset that, a little bit of an inability to score. So, I thought we played pretty well for the majority of that game. I thought we battled. St. Peter's is a tough physical team. I thought we were able to match their physicality. We were able to keep them off the offensive backboards for a great majority of that game. And unfortunately, didn't make enough shots. Didn't give ourselves enough great offensive possessions down the stretch to finish them out.
Now, last year you had all of these split weekends. It felt like every weekend was a split weekend. The Mount was on the road on a Friday and then, traveling a long ways to come home on a Sunday. Hasn't been so much like that this year, but you had that test with Manhattan coming to town. And I thought it was this very interesting game going into it because the Jaspers can really score the basketball. They were coming off a win on Friday night where they scored 95 points. And the Mount had allowed just 65 points per game in the last 11. So to hold Manhattan to exactly that 65 number was enormous in the 7-point win.
Yeah, it was huge. We really tried to focus on keeping them out of transition and not let them get out and get some of those easy baskets in quick possessions that let you get to 90 or 95 points.
Yes.
And I thought we did a really good job of that. Made them take a little bit longer to execute the stuff that they wanted to execute. And then, we did a pretty good job at protecting the rim. They made some threes early, maybe it was a little bit of fool's gold. They didn't make as many down the stretch, and but they didn't get layups.
Right.
We didn't give up a ton, at least, of layups, and did a pretty good job at keeping them away from the basket. And then on a day that we didn't shoot the ball particularly well, still able to score around the basket, still able to get us obviously a 7-point win where was one of those games where I think everyone was a little frustrated that you couldn't put them away.
Right.
But it's conference basketball. The other team's not going away, and especially on a day when you're not banging a bunch of shots, it's hard to put somebody away and pull away, and to have the resilience and the fortitude to say, even though things aren't going our way, maybe these shots that we normally make aren't going in. Let's stick to our principles. Let's be patient. Let's fight for the shots we want. Let's get on the offensive glass, and then most importantly, let's get enough stops that even when we're not making a million shots, we can score enough to win.
It's an interesting point. Manhattan's only lead in the game was 5-3, but there it was. I mean, it was never a lopsided game. They were always kind of right there where a big run from the Jaspers could have taken the lead. And down the stretch, it even got down to being a 1-point game. You scored the last 6 points of the game, but it was Luke McKeldin that really came through with a few big buckets. There was the and one there when it was, I believe, a 1-point game. He was clutch down the stretch.
Yeah, Luke's a really good player. That helps. We really tried to get him the ball late in the game. Wanted to get inside. Knew that if we could get him the ball where he likes it, he'd have a good chance of scoring. And so our guys were poised. They executed. Ran a couple set plays. Which that were really trying to get him a look, and got him the ball, and he was able to go finish. And when you got a good big. You got to press that advantage, and Luke's a guy that we know we can play through. We can get him a lot of opportunities, and he's unselfish. That I thought Luke did a great job in that game of recognizing his advantage and going to score. Early in the game, they were bringing a double team. He got it out. He found Landis at the top of the key for a wide open three. He did a good job at saying, hey, when they're going to double, I'm not going to force the issue. When they're not going to double, I'm going to go quick and go get a bucket. And he did a great job at that. And when we needed him down the stretch was big for us.
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about AK Kebe's dunk. I mean, oh my goodness. All the years here watching Mount games, I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like that. We saw some great dunks over the years from so many great players. There were so many great Nana Opoku dunks over the years. Dola Adebayo was an outstanding dunker, and he had a lot of them. But I don't know how that one is not one of one. It was on the SportsCenter top 10 list. And the video that Mount Athletics put out, you could tell that the guys on the anchor desk were like taken back by it. Like they were like, here's number 2 on the top 10. Oh my God. So that was something. We got to come up with a name for it.
Yeah, that's not my forte. We'll let you guys at marketing and promotions figure that stuff out. But I was obviously, AK is a guy whose athleticism and his ability to be a dynamic two-way player is why he plays so much, that's an impressive dunk. You should see some of the stuff he's done at Memorial over the course of the last year and a half that he's been with us. He's obviously a phenomenal athlete, been blessed with some gifts that a lot of us mere mortals don't have. But he's aggressive. He's playing with a free head. He's playing with a ton of confidence right now. And so, he sees an opening and he goes and takes it. And, obviously it's great when our guys can get that kind of recognition, when the Mount as a university and as an athletic department, and obviously us as a basketball program can get that kind of national recognition is great. The guys were joking because St. Peter's got on top 10 against us on Friday night. And so they wanted to try to get back on Sunday. So AK took care of it for the guys.
But one of the things too is that versatility defensively, because that is a big weapon for you, for Kebe, because he can guard so many different players on the floor.
Yeah, he can guard 1 through 4 pretty much exclusively, and there's very few guys that can go by him off the dribble. There's very few guys that have it, even if they might be stronger than him with his length and athleticism, that can get to the rim and finish easily, when he's there. And so it's huge for us, his ability to guard the basketball, to guard the opponent's point guard, who in this league is generally a 6'2" or below guard that has equal or less athleticism, certainly less length, and it wears those guys out. It makes it difficult for those point guards to be able to execute what they want to, especially late in the game. First few possessions, okay, I can deal with this. But as it wears on you over the course of a game, there you see it in almost every game. There's a possession or two where that guy's just like, he just throws the ball to somebody else and you take it. I don't want to deal with this guy right now. And so, that's a goal that that's what we want him to do. And he's been phenomenal at that. And, his focus on defending and rebounding has been huge for our team, but also for him. His ability to score without, really being focused on scoring. It has been really cool to see.
All right, folks, we got 4 weeks left in the regular season. We're coming down the stretch. We're going to talk about what is up ahead in a big week for the Mount later in our program, as Mount St. Mary's will be home against MAAC and then on the road against Iona. We take a quick break. We're back with more of the Donny Lind Show right after this.
The time has come. The steak and cheese sandwich is back at Roy Rogers. Savory or spicy, make it yours with your favorite fixins. Go big and upgrade to a large drink and holster fry for the full cowboy experience. Get it while you can. Steak and cheese is here for a limited time only. See you soon at Roy Rogers.
Welcome back to the Donny Lind Show, presented by Educational Systems Federal Credit Union. My name is Adam Pohl. Coach, this is a big week ahead. I mean, we say it every week, obviously. Every conference game holds a lot of weight, but you've now put yourself in this position. A top 6 spot in the league is there for the taking, potentially, if you're able to close strong, and you've got a week against some very, very tough opponents. First of all, it's going to be a home game here Thursday night, 7 o'clock. There's only 3 home games left. So you got to come on out to Knott Arena and get loud as the number one team right now in the league, MAAC, is coming to town.
Yeah, it is. It's a big week. Like we said, they all are. But this time of the year, you get into February, and there's a lot in the balance. And MAAC coming in, obviously they've had a phenomenal year so far. I thought we played a pretty good game up there early. It seems like forever ago.
Yes.
In I think it was January 2nd, or first or second. That we played up there, and so they're a unique team. Obviously, have some familiarity from the NEC, and now here in the MAAC with them. But they bring a unique style. They play zone defense the entire game. They are a methodical team that tries to really take you out of your rhythm, and so we have a huge test with them. They've been playing very well. They've got really good guard play, and it's going to put our defense to the test with their dynamic guards that can get downhill and attack the basket.
A few years ago, it felt like the only time you would see a zone defense would be against MAAC, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. I mean, I feel like we have seen in the MAAC this year more zone than ever before. Is that a help in some way when you go against a MAAC team?
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you see a cover band, right? It's like sure, you're familiar maybe with some of the songs, but when you see the real thing, you pay a lot more money to go to see the Stones versus seeing the Stones cover band. And so, when MAAC comes, you can't necessarily rely on maybe what's worked against some of the other zones because they are so good at it. It is, foundational to what they do. And so, we will have a plan of attack and we'll be ready to go. And we've had, pretty decent success, obviously, in the 2 years here, now 2-1 against them, and so we'll be aggressive to attack their zone, and and then again, you gotta do a great job in the winning the margins. You gotta really rebound the ball against them. You got to get offensive rebounds and not let them get offensive rebounds. You got to take care of the ball. Something we've really been striving to improve upon, and they really try to make it difficult and try to get a lot of steals, and we got to do a great job taking care of the ball and hopefully forcing a few turnovers for them with our pressure and wearing those guards down. And then if we can keep them off the free throw line, they're a team that gets there a lot, and so we got to be able to guard them without fouling and walking them to the free throw line. If we can win some of those margins, I think it gives us a huge chance to knock them off.
And then Saturday night, you're going to be back on the road. We're going to have a watch party, by the way, Coach, at X Golf in Frederick. So make sure to come on out. No charge. Come on out, watch the Mount and Iona with a lot of Mount fans in Frederick. But Iona is a team, so much legacy, so much history, but new coach, new team. You faced them, we talk, really early in the year, in the month of December, and it was a huge win, the first conference win for the Mount. Of course, it's the championship rematch from a year ago, and you guys are neck and neck in the standings.
Yeah, Iona has put together a heck of a year so far. Obviously with a new coach and basically all new players, and seemed like they haven't missed a beat. And so that'll be a game that we've got to try to bring our physical style of defense up there. Bring our ability to kind of shut their water off like we did here for a long stretch of that game. That's a huge key with them is they can really score and they can really get it going in a hurry. And so they test your defense. And so we'll travel up there quickly after MAAC for a completely different style of game, which is what's fun about the league. You get completely different styles every night, and it's a team that we'll be certainly ready to go once we get there on Saturday.
What kind of challenge is that for your coaching staff in totality in preparation? Obviously, in a way, you're preparing all year, to face these types of teams, but it's such a quick turnaround.
Oh, for sure. The most important thing is the physical readiness of our guys, and our training staff does an unbelievable job at getting them from the time we finish the game on Thursday night ready for a light practice on Friday and the trip up there, but getting their bodies recovered, getting them into the point where they're ready to perform on Saturday night. That's the most important thing. Our coaching staff does a great job. They work ahead, so they finished up MAAC probably at some point in time early in the week, and then they can start, having one eye on MAAC, but then another eye on Iona so that they can make sure we're ready. Obviously, the second time through the league's a little bit easier. Yeah. You get a chance to kind of refresh what they did against you, what's kind of changed, what worked in our first game plan, what didn't, what tweaks do we need to make? And then, our guys have been great about those 1 days, implementing the changes that we need to make, but really focusing on our fundamentals. I think those 1 day prep games come down to, how solid are you in your fundamentals? How physically ready are you? How mentally tough are you when you're tired, when both teams are tired? which team is, a little bit mentally tougher, which team's a little bit emotionally tougher in those games, and then can you make those one or two little tweaks to your game plan to give you an advantage, and then what do you anticipate them to do, and how can you counter that? And so our coaching staff does an unbelievable job at getting our plan together, and then we implement it for the guys, and the guys do a great job at trying to retain as much as they can. It's mostly off film and off walkthrough, and so they don't get a lot of reps at it, but then to go out in the game and execute it, they've done a great job all year.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Coach.
Absolutely.
Best of luck here this week. So once again, a busy week ahead. We hope to see you at Knott Arena on Thursday night as the Mount takes on first place Merrimack. Get those tickets at mountathletics.com. And then a watch party at X Golf in Frederick Saturday night, 7 o'clock, as the Mount will take on Iona. For Coach Lind, my name is Adam Pohl. This has been the Donny Lind Show presented by Educational Systems Federal Credit Union. Have a great day, everyone.